Wardrobe for the Bass Tour Anglers podcast provided by Koppel Outfitters. Go have an adventure. Visit them online at www.koppeloutfitters.com and on social media at Koppel Outfitters. We'll get those life vests zipped and clipped, strap down those rods, and stow away those tackle bags because we are going fishing. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Bass Tour Anglers podcast. Thanks for being with us. Tacticam fisheye cameras make this podcast possible. Tacticam, this is the company that offers high-resolution action cameras at a price about half of what the competitors charge. Are you in the market for an action camera? Be sure to check out Tacticam fisheye cameras. You'll be happy you did. We are proud to announce that we are now the Western representatives for Ducket Fishing. You know these guys, the strongest pro staff in all of tournament bass fishing. If you have any questions about the Ducket Fishing lineup of pro-driven products, send us a DM on Instagram or go to our website, www.basstouranglers.com, and send us an email. We'll get your answer back to you right away. If you're new here, please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and leave us a comment if you're so inclined. When I was a younger internet radio show host back in the early 2000s, Mike Iaconelli was one of the pros I could always count on to come on and do a segment. In fact, he was actually keeping a tournament diary for us during the 2003 Classic when the shot heard round the world occurred. Let's set the stage properly. In those days, professional bass tour anglers were reserved, polite, businesslike, much like professional golfers today. Then, in a single moment, he caught what he knew was the winning bass, and a bolt of lightning hit the bass fishing world, and all the pent-up emotion from all the bass pros before him was unleashed. It opened the door for freedom of expression within the sport, and it opened the door for all the personalities in the sport that we know and love today.
So I adapted well today. I'm disappointed in the size I had today. I only have two real good ones and one decent one, and the other two are peewees. So, but maybe other guys struggled. Maybe that'll keep me in there. I don't know. I have 10 minutes left to fish, and I'm not going to quit. I'm going to fish every minute. Just missed a strike there. Let's go back with this. Big one! Big one! Oh my God! This is a giant. It's got me caught on something. This is a giant. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God, it's the winning fish. Never give up! Never give up! Ah! Woo! Oh my God! I can't believe it. Oh my God, we were just talking about it. Folks at home, that one's for you, baby. Woo!
Our guest has won at every level that BASS offers. He's the only angler to win at the federation level, at the tour level, win a Bassmaster Classic, win an Angler of the Year title, and yeah, he's now even won a BASS Nation kayak tournament. He is the co-founder of the Ike Foundation, an organization whose mission it is to introduce urban youth to the sport of fishing. And he himself is a media mogul. starring in Fish My City, hosting the popular Ike Live podcast, and of course his YouTube channel, Going Ike, MikeIaconelli.com, and the list goes on and on. Mike Iaconelli, welcome to the Bass Pro Anglers podcast. Thanks for being with us today.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's great to be on.
Quick question, Mike. Who was the first to break dance on stage at a BASS event? Was it you or was it Skeet Reese?
Well, that's a trick question because if you were say who is the first to dance on stage at the Classic, Skeet would get the nod. If you were asking who's the first to break dance on stage, I would get the nod for that one. And the other thing to keep in mind is the way Skeet dances, it's very questionable whether it's actually dancing. It's more like stripping or exotic dancing. I don't know, but I'd give it to Skeet as the first dancer, but me the first break dancer.
Mike, it seems like in those days, those were the early ESPN days, and ESPN was, shall we say, encouraging anglers to be camera friendly.
Yeah, that was, an interesting period of the sport. When you look at the history of the sport of bass fishing, there's definitely been, time periods where things have happened. And that early 2000s, mid 2000s, in my opinion, was one of the key parts of the sport. Yep. It was one of the first chances that people got to look at bass fishing as something that wasn't just this static, slow Southern sport. They got to see it in a whole new light. And characters like Skeet and Van Dam and Takahiro and Ish, a lot of those anglers definitely opened up the doors to get more people watching fishing. And that was a good thing.
Well, you were really the first angler to bring that raw emotion, that showmanship, theater, if you will, to the sport. And I really believe that it's opened up the door for a lot of today's personalities to kind of be themselves. In fact, going Ike became a verb that is still out there today. We see people that are going Ike. What does it mean to go Ike?
Yeah, going Ike it's what a cool term. To me, it means excitement, energy, passion. It means, if you're an angler, I don't care if you're a weekend angler, an aspiring pro, anything in between, the feeling of landing a fish, and especially when it's an important one, whether it's your PB, whether it's the biggest fish of your fishing trip, your one fishing trip that year, or whether it's the winning fish at a Classic, that feeling of landing that fish, of completing the puzzle. That's why we do it, and, so going Ike is letting that emotion out, and I've been that way my whole life, whether it's fishing, I've played competitive sports, even in school, when something big happens, I've always tended to let my emotions out. So it's been great. I'm glad people have embraced it. I'm a fan of the sport today. I love watching them all. I watch MLF and I watch NPAA. I watch all these other circuits. I watch Bass Elites. And when I see people get excited and get emotional, the highs and the lows, and I see them let it out, I think it's wonderful. I think it's great. I like watching it.
Well, it's what makes it compelling for us, Mike. I mean, as a fan of the sport, now we get to be in the boat via the coverage, and we get to see lots of people going Ike. And to the pioneer, you open the door, and it is what it is now. A bachelor's degree in advertising and public relations from Rowan University, class of '96. Clearly, there weren't a lot of bass fishing opportunities in college those days, but talk about how that degree has helped you in the world of bass fishing reach the empire-like status that you have today.
Yeah, it's been a tremendous help over the years. And, when you're a student and I can remember that was my major, you get a lot of classes and you think, is this stuff I'm really going to use, right? What's the end goal of all this? But years later, I look back on my years at Rowan and those courses and what I learned, and I use it all the time, from public relations, advertising, marketing, learning about branding, brand messaging, all that stuff has really helped me. So yeah, that was an important stage of my life. I look back on it and I'm so glad, I went and furthered my education early on. And, you hit it right on the head. We didn't have the college bass fishing leagues back then, but I fished as an amateur during college, and that was key too, so I sort of did what the college guys are doing at a different level. And I fished as an amateur in 93, 94, 95, and learned a lot from the back of the boat. I can tell you that.
We are talking to Mike Iaconelli, Say No More. That name says it all. You've got a new show coming out, My World. Certainly there's going to be fishing, but is there going to be bull riding and some cage fighting also?
This is one of the coolest opportunities I've ever had in my life. Not just in the career of fishing, but in my life. Yeah, this is the coolest show concept. When it was presented to me a little over a year ago, it took me all of about 3 minutes after I read the treatment to say yes. That's how quick it took me. But it's such an amazing show. It's a real simple concept. And basically, I get to jump into the world of other professional athletes. And not just the mainstream stuff. Yeah. I'm talking about across the board, right? Football, hockey, basketball, golf, UFC, bull riding, swimming, extreme sports, like all this stuff. And I get to really see why they are the best in their sport. And it's been incredible. It gives you a new appreciation for why these are the best athletes in their sport. And the one thing I realized is I'm not very good at anything else except fishing. So I'm really bad at all this stuff, but it's been fun learning. And then the second day of the shoot, they get to jump into my world and I get to take them fishing. And this has been really fun as well, because I've got to fish with hardcore fish heads. Martin Truex, who's a NASCAR driver. Yeah. Dude, he could be on tour. He's that good. But I've had the other end of this extreme. I've had guys like Kyle Troop, who's one of the world's best bowling professionals, and very little fishing experience, but got to show him the sport, the ins and outs. And I can tell you, in an 8-hour day, Kyle turned into one of the best fishermen I know. So he was a quick study, but it's a really fun concept. We're less than 30 days away from the launch of it. I cannot wait for people to see the show and hopefully they'll enjoy it.
Mike, having been able to watch your career, I think I was there at the beginning and I've watched it go to where it is now. A 375,000 follower Instagram account, 160,000 followers on YouTube, the Ike Live podcast, MikeIaconelli.com. I use the word media mogul lightly, but it's reality. There are major networks that would like to have the kind of juice that you have with your media ventures. Yeah. Always on the cutting edge. You're certainly one of the first professional anglers to embrace media and make it work for you. Talk about Mike Iaconelli, media mogul.
It's been a really cool thing to look back on, and it's been this really cool process that unfolded over a lot of years. But I remember, early on in the early 2000s, and specifically after I won the Classic, I remember sitting down with my good friend, Pete Glusick, who's my partner in the Bass University program. And I remember sitting down with him and saying, all right, look, this is a amazing opportunity that's here. There aren't that many Classic winners. Winning that thing gives you a lot of great opportunities. And I remember sitting down and saying, let's roadmap this and try to really grow this into something big. And from then on, we've worked every day with one simple strategy, and that is, how can we reach the maximum amount of people, right? And that happens a lot of ways through media. That happens through TV and podcasting and radio and print, and it happens through social media, and it happens through the internet, and it happens through content. It happens all these different ways. And it's been so fun, exploring it and learning it. And I also got to give a big, got to give the biggest shout out to my wife, who's really been instrumental in a lot of this. Becky gets very little press when it comes to the business side of what she does, but she really drives it. And, she's a lot smarter than me, I can promise you that. But she had a great understanding of how a business works and how to grow a business. And it's been incredible. She's not only my wife and my friend, but she's a business partner. And it's been really fun sort of trying to do stuff that's never been done with her, side by side, and it's been fun, man. It's a lot of work. Listen, I never want to complain because I love it, man. This is my passion. But like what we're doing right now, this is a Sunday at 4:00. People aren't working right now, but I love it. And that's the kind of feeling that we have together. Like we'll sit after we get off this podcast. I'm going to sit by the pool with her. We're going to be drinking these Arnold Palmers, and we're going to be every once in a while, we'll just say, oh shit, how about this? How about this side? And it's been that kind of mentality with Becky and I and Pete and some of the other business partners we have. And we have a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun. If you're listening to this, if you're watching this, if you want to grow your business, get involved with business partners that want to have fun. Because when you make it fun, when you make it something that you're passionate anyway, doesn't feel like work,
The Ike Foundation, another example of groundbreaking territory that you and your wife Becky founded. We have other pros out there that have done some things, but I mean, the Ike Foundation, it was one of the first. And here's a professional angler giving back. How did this all come together? What's its future look like, and which direction are you going to go with it?
Yeah, that's been one of the most rewarding parts of the business. Every one of them we love, but the Ike Foundation is the one that, we work at, and when we see it growing and succeeding, it feels so good because it's all about just growing the sport, right? And getting new kids involved. But, we've been involved in charities from day one. We still are. Other charities, autism awareness, cancer charities, veterans. We support our military. So many charities we're involved with. But, Becky and I sat down about 8 or 9 years ago and said, we're going to start a foundation. We're going to start our own good thing, our own feel-good thing to give back. And we sat down and said, what does this mean? And, Becky said, well, what was important in your childhood? What was important in your life? And I said, I grew up in Philadelphia and then across the bridge into suburban Jersey. I said, man, if my family wasn't there to show me fishing, if my uncle and grandfather weren't there to show me the sport, I'd be in big trouble, man. I'd be in big trouble. I can tell you right now. And that kind of really pointed the direction at it. And we said, look, we want to have a charity, a foundation that gets kids fishing, but specifically, let's target kids that might not ever be able to experience it on their own, right? They don't have a family member. They don't live in Guntersville, Alabama, right? They don't live in Key West, Florida, where fishing will be a normal thing. So that was the basics of it. That was the idea, the concept, and it's been so great over the years to watch it grow and grow and grow. And so now 8, 9 years later, we've really seen the fruits of our labor, and we are getting new kids fishing every year. And our big thing is this. Listen, if some of them turn out to be hardcore fish heads like us, that's great. If some of them turn out to be professional anglers or secure jobs in the fishing industry, that's great. But we want to give kids a love and appreciation for the outdoors and fishing. And it's been so rewarding to be able to help do that. You know, at the end of the day, if you can get a few kids a year interested in the sport that wouldn't have otherwise, you've done a good thing. So it's been great. It's been great. If anybody's watching or listening, please go over to ikefoundation.org. Check it out. Lots of ways you can get involved and help. We've got ambassadors all over the country. We can donate rods and reels to existing groups all over the country. So please give us a check and get a kid fishing that's never fished before. That's important.
Change. It's inevitable. To improve, you must adapt. The sport is evolving. A paradigm shift is a fundamental change of basic concepts. Don't get left behind. Introducing Paradigm. Paradigm Reels by Duckett Fishing. Pro-driven.
We are talking to Mike Iaconelli. He is one of the few members of the Bassmaster Classic champion angler of the year that we have out there. There's a handful, but not too many people have done both those things. Mike, 2006, it was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Where have I heard that? Where have I heard that before?
Yeah.
But it was a year that rightly or wrongly catapulted you, I think, to the stratosphere of the sport. You had a day one disqualification at the 2006 Classic, which took place in February, that brought you some negative attention, cost you a boat sponsorship. But then you went on the most amazing run during that Elite Series. You won the Angler of the Year title. Talk about 2006. First of all, are you the only pro to ever win an Angler of the Year title without a boat sponsor?
Probably, I would say that's dead on correct. I would say yes. And you know, you hit it right on the head when you said 2006 was a lot of highs and a lot of lows, you know, and you know, when I look back on that, I think, you know, you look back on your life and you look back on things and you say, man, I wish I could have did that different, you know, and in hindsight, could I have reacted different? Could I have, you know, changed it in a different way? And, you know, part of you says, yeah, man, I wish I wouldn't have reacted or wish I wouldn't have did this. But the other part of you really, you know, I am who I am, and I don't want to go back and change anything, because, you know, that incident, that Classic that year really sort of snapped me out of it. And I was sort of in a little bit of a funk. It snapped me out of it and said, look, you're the luckiest guy in the world. You fish for a living. You're doing something you love. Get back to doing what you do, which is fish, right? I love the puzzle. I love the fishing. I love the, you know, the strategy behind trying to figure out fish. And I really did, after that event, I think I refocused my fishing and even my life a little bit, you know? And so sometimes you have to make mistakes. You have to fail. You have to do the wrong thing to get to the right thing, right? And I'm human. I make mistakes. I'm not perfect. I'll never be that angler, right? There's some of those out there. Kevin Van Dam's as perfect as you can get, bro. He is. I'm not him. I make mistakes. I do the wrong things. And that year was huge for me in refocusing. And I had the best 11 events of my entire life. And that was back when the elites were 11 events that ran from the winter to the fall. And I'm really, really proud of that. You know, I'm not taking away from any of the AOYs before or since. Seth Fighter this year, one of the best seasons I've ever seen in my life, in my career. I got to watch it. It was breathtaking. But 11 events over winter, spring, summer, fall, fishing against all of the best names in the world, right? The league was one back then. There was bass pretty much, and that was it. I'm really proud of that. It was a tremendous accomplishment. When I was a kid, when I was 16, 17 years old, I had been reading Bassmasters probably since I was about 12 or 13, so about 3 or 4 years. I dreamed of winning two things in my life, a classic and an AOY. And when that happened, it was a childhood dream being fulfilled, you know. And I can remember that moment when I knew it was a reality. My uncle was there. It was at Table Rock Lake in Missouri, and I had an okay event on a super tough fishery fall at Table Rock. And I remember the moment that I knew that I did it. My uncle was there, and it really completed my career, but it completed my life, because my uncle was the guy that taught me how to fish. So to have him there, and that year he got to see the highs and the lows with me. He was at the Classic when that happened. He was at Guntersville when I won. He was at Champlain when I had a 50th place finish, right? He saw the roller coaster with me. And to have him there at that moment, there were no cameras at that point. It was a lot less coverage at that point, but he was there standing on my front deck when we knew, and it was emotional. It was my career being fulfilled. It was, I can't even, I don't even know how to explain it any more than that, but it was one of the best moments of my entire career and life.
It was an amazing year, an amazing time for bass fishing. You were fishing open events also during that time, weren't you?
Yes. I love the opens. The opens have been a fixture in my career from the very beginning. I started fishing the opens in 1996, and I have fished them every single year since, minus COVID, which everybody's forgetting about that year anyway. But I love the opens. The opens to me are, you know, it's one of the hardest, if not the hardest levels to compete and win. And I get criticism for saying that, but the opens have some of the very best pros, some of the very best locals. They have anglers that come in for 2 and 3 and 4 week practice periods. It is hard to win at that level. So, but I love the opens. I'll compete at the opens for as long as I can keep casting. You know.
Yeah, I think those Bassmaster Opens and the Toyota Series events, there are raw, hungry anglers on that tour, and yeah, and there's a lot of them.
It's a lot of them. Super tough to win at that level.
Okay, KVD versus Ike, the feud. What is it?
You know, I don't want to disappoint people and you know, give it away, but a lot of that was you know, media driven, and that's okay. You know, I think both of us early on understood that, and understood the importance of having a good guy and a bad guy and a rivalry. It's really good. And if you look at other sports, name any of them. I don't care. Wrestling, football, baseball, hockey, any of them, UFC. That is a very important element to attract fans, to keep fans engaged, to grow a sport. So, man, I always was okay with that rivalry, even if it was, a lot of it was made up. I was okay with it. And, you know, at the end of the day, he is the best fisherman in the world. You know, in my opinion right now, I would say Kevin and Rick Clunn and Jacob Wheeler are 3 of the best anglers to ever walk the face of the earth. I will never be that angler. I love to fish, and I'm passionate, and I like it, and I work hard. But I'll never be that angler. And so to be able to compete against him all these years, I've beat him a few times, which is nice. He's beat me more, but it's nice. It's been a fun time competing with and against him. And, you know, I wouldn't want to redo it any other way, right? I wouldn't want to go back and say, oh, I wish I could compete when he wasn't there. How much better could I have done? I don't want to do that. You know, same thing with the modern day, the Wheelers and the Jordan Lees, right? I'm okay with that. I'm okay saying that these guys are flat out the best in the world. And, you know, every once in a while, I have that opportunity to have a better event than them. And it does put a lot into perspective, because they are the best, you know?
Well, we had to get that in because that's a subject that bass fishing fans Well, they fall apart over that. So it's good that we got that in there.
Yeah.
Hey, at the end of the 2018 season, the bass fishing world was rocked by the split that created the Bass Pro Tour. You were one of the big names that left BASS to join Major League Fishing's new tour. Can you give us some insight into how you made that decision to move to the Bass Pro Tour?
Yeah, that was a difficult time for everyone, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for the anglers, for the organizations, for the sponsors were confused. The fans were confused. I can give you the simplest, easiest answer you'll ever hear about the topic, which is when all that was going down, you got to remember the state of the sport, and keep in mind the state of the sport and the anglers and their livelihood, right? Their careers. And at that point, we had a lot of anglers that were unhappy that they didn't have a say, or a little say, even a little say in their own destiny, right? Mm-hmm. So, think about that. Think about dedicating your life to a profession that you work, you work nonstop, every day in, day out, financially, you give your life to this sport and you make it, right? You make it to the top. And when you get there, you sort of feel like you're just a name, right? You don't have a say into your own destiny or your future or your brand or any of that stuff, right? You're sort of, just a name on a list. That's a bad thing. And, the other thing real quick is look at other sports. Other sports have all gone through these growing pains, right? All of them. Baseball, football, hockey, all of them, basketball, right? Where at some point the athlete said, look, we're the reason you guys have fans. We're the reason you're making the money. We're the reason you have these events. We're the reason for everything, right?
Yeah.
We're the athletes. I think, it got to a point of the sport where the anglers wanted to have more control of their own fate. And that's what that movement was all about, right? It was about nothing besides that. And again, other sports, you saw a breakaway from other sports, and they were able to create a league or an association or a group where the anglers had some say and some rights. That's what that movement was all about when it happened. It was the toughest decision for me because I was an owner of Major League Fishing. I was a supporter of bass and still am because it's where my career was based. But at the end of the day, I want what's best for the anglers. And I think a lot of the guys made the decision saying, hey, we need to stand up for ourselves at this point. We need to take some ownership of what we do in our sport. And that's what that movement was all about. Regardless of how you look at how it's ended up right now, I think it was a really big and important thing. And we're talking about it here just a few years after it happens. If we were having the same podcast 10 or 20 years from now, it would be so obvious, black and white, at how important that was to the sport, right?
Yeah.
But it's still so fresh now, it's hard to analyze it. But I can tell you that already it's had a lot of positive impacts. I know that bass has made giant improvements in angler relations and anglers' say and anglers' rights, and so has MLF, right? So, that was a really difficult thing, but it was a necessary thing. I don't care if you love MLF and you hate bass, or you hate bass and love MLF. It was a necessary thing, and we still need to lobby for more rights than we have at the present time. So it's not over, but in hindsight, I'm glad it happened. The sport's growing. That's all you could ask for.
As 2020 came to an end, there was a lot of speculation that you would use a Legends exemption to rejoin the BASS Elite Series. But as deadlines for both tours approached, you didn't commit to either tour. So we've had an Iaconelli-less season on both the Elite Series Tour and the Bass Pro Tour. Iaconelli-less. That's tough for us that are big fans. What caused you to stay out of the Pro Tours this year?
Yeah, it wasn't one thing. It was a combination of a few things. I'll take them bit by bit. I'll give you a faster version of it. The first one was, let's go back to COVID. COVID changed the world, changed all of our lives. I don't care what you do. I don't care what your profession is, occupation. It changed our world. And, when COVID hit, it stopped all the tours. And MLF specifically decided to cease the rest of the Bass Pro Tours that year. So it was a year where I got a lot of time at home, and I sort of stepped outside of the norm for the first time in 30 years, right? The first time in 30 years that I got to be home, got to be with my kids on normal stuff like soccer and field hockey and school plays and I think COVID forced me personally to step back and reanalyze my life a little bit, right? And I am the most competitive, hardcore guy you'd ever meet. But, I think COVID sort of made me say, man, I missed a lot all those years. And there's other things in life, right? There's other things in life besides fishing the elites or the Bass Pro Tour. There's other things, right? and coinciding with that, like at the same time, we had one of the best years ever with impact with our sponsors, right? So like while other anglers, their brand, their voice, their views went to zero, ours rose, right? We doubled our content. We doubled our output. We did more social media than ever. We did more live. We did more podcasts. We doubled everything. And we were able to reach more people, not tournament fishing at the highest level. And that caused me to step back and say, look, I had a conversation with every single sponsor. I said, here are the numbers. Look. And they went, man, you're right. This is amazing. There's more people fishing because of COVID. You're reaching more people. Is it more important for me to not fish? Can I reach more people not fishing a full top level tour? And, part of it was that. Part of it was saying there's other ways to have an impact. And we've proven it. We've had the great opportunity to say we can be as effective and more effective not fishing a top level tour for the sponsors and for sales and for all that stuff. So a little bit of that. And, I got to be honest. And the third part of it was a little bit of it is I was getting burnout with Major League Fishing. This is personally, right? This isn't, I would never knock MLF or FLW or any of the tours out there because they're all awesome. They do a great job. But for me personally, I had sort of reached a point where, I felt like I had my fill of Major League Fishing, of that style and the format. I really honestly was sort of, I was missing elements that weren't there. And that specifically is the fans, right? The fan interaction. I missed it, right? I missed the fish. I missed bringing in those 5 fish. I missed holding them up at weigh-in, man. I missed calling. I missed a lot of aspects of how I know tournament fishing. I missed it. So it was time for me to take a break. As far as the bass exemption, I can honestly tell you that it was never an option for me personally, because I didn't want to go. If I decided to go back to bass, I didn't want to do it on a handout or on an exemption. I wanted to earn it and work for it and have to requalify. I felt like that was the right thing to do. So, so that was an important thing for me to not accept that. And it wasn't, it was a non-issue anyway, but it's not the way that I wanted to go back to bass. And then the last thing, you already mentioned it, but the My World filming has been fun, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and I cannot wait for everyone to see it. And when you watch a 22-minute episode, that's all a 30-minute show ends up being, right, with commercials. It's 22 minutes. When you watch it, you think, oh, man, these are simple. This is a cakewalk. They were a lot of work, and we had a lot of time and energy and work invested in filming these shows. And so it ate up a lot of the time where I would have been tour fishing this year. So that was a shorter version of a very, 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 very long-winded answer. But I'm glad, I've had great support. I've seen the posts. I've seen my fans. I know what the sponsors, we talk to sponsors every week. So I can't thank everyone enough for their support in a different year for me,
Well, I appreciate that answer. That was very in depth and it seemed heartfelt. Now, speaking of that, you are fishing the BASS Northern Opens this year, and with one event left, you are second in the points race.
Yes.
Is this something you're trying to requalify for the elites for next year, possibly?
100%, absolutely.
Wow.
I can tell you that my goal in fishing the Northern Opens this year, I had two goals, and one is to win one. I would love to qualify for another Bassmaster Classic, right? And that's an invite. If you fish all three and you win one, you get an invite to Classics. So that's a goal, and I still have one chance left. But the second goal was 100% to finish in the top 5 in points and to requalify for the elites. Now, let me tell you this, though. That does not mean that I am 100% going back to the elites, I really wanted to have that option there this fall when I have to make that decision, and I'll be honest, I don't even know the official date yet. Usually it's October, maybe it's November. At some point the elites will, if I end up in the top 5, they'll call me to the plate and they'll say, you're one in the top 5, you have an invite, do you want it, right? At that point, I think literally like on the deadline, right? At that point, we'll make an educated decision. And when I say we, first and foremost, it'll be my wife and I, and we'll make a decision based on us and our family, right? Number 2, we'll make the decision based on sponsors and, are they happy with what's happened in 2021? Do they love the show? Do they love the direction, how we're reaching people? And, based on those 2 things, we're going to make a decision. And if I end up coming back to full-time tour fishing in 2022 and I qualify for the elites, 100% I will accept that invite.
Well, I tell you, as a fan of the sport, I think the thing that all bass fishing fans would love to see is the Mike Iaconelli vlog series that would come out of this, because we get to watch quite a few good ones, but I can only imagine what the Mike Iaconelli vlog series would be like. Yeah.
Well, we love doing the content, and we love trying to be real with everyone, and it's been an amazing journey. It's not always ups, it's ups and downs and everything in between, and I think people appreciate that. The life of a Bass Pro fisherman is like anyone's life. There's good times, there's bad times, there's struggles, there's triumphs, there's all that stuff.
Koppel Outfitters specializes in adventure gear. Anything you need for getting outside, Koppel Outfitters has it and more. Go have an adventure now. We're talking to Mike Iaconelli. He is a BASS Bassmaster Classic winner. He is a BASS Angler of the Year. He is a media mogul. He is all of the above. The kayak, Mike, You have famously won at every level of BASS, the Federation, the Tour, the Classic, Angler of the Year. Now we can add a Bass Nation Kayak Championship. Kayak fishing is a big deal, and those numbers are growing rapidly, correct?
It's a big deal. It's such a big deal, and it is growing and growing and growing. It is probably the fastest growing segment,
Yep.
in my opinion, of sport fishing. And the reason behind it, it's simple. It's accessible.
Yeah.
It's so accessible to the average dude,
Yep.
right? You know, when you look at, let's look at Chris Zaldain. You know, you turn on ESPN and you watch Chris. He's an amazing fisherman. He makes it fun. He's good, right? You see him in that big boat and that he backs it onto the trailer and he weighs in these big. It's awesome and it makes you excited. But to get to that level quickly, being an average dude, is very, very tough, right? The great thing about kayak fishing is they're from $500 to $5,000. You don't need a trailer. You don't need gas. You can stick it on top of your car, put it in the back of your pickup. You can fish a high-level tournament. You can launch places you can't. There's so many reasons I think kayak fishing appeals to people. And I'm 100% behind anything that's growing the sport. And kayak fishing is growing the sport.
Is this the next chapter for you? Will you be doing kayak tour this next year?
I will. So I'm going to continue in my kayak quest regardless of how the next 12 to 24 months play out. Meaning, you know, we've got a new TV show and we might have an elite invite. Maybe we'll have an MLF invite. I don't know. You know, regardless of any of that, I think that for me, I'm going to keep kayak fishing. And that's twofold. That's fun fishing out of the kayak, which I love to do. I love to do it with my son as well. He has a Hobie and saltwater, freshwater. So I'm going to keep fun fishing in my kayak. And the competitive side, you know, it's like, I think if you're a competitor, right, and you win, you know, it's like, what else can I do? And a goal for me was to win a top level professional kayak event. Man, that's a great thing I've checked off my bucket list. But now we've got championship events. We've got AOYs. We've got, you know, all these other kind of events, different circuits. There's KBF. There's Hobie BOS. So, you know, I'm so happy that I won one, but I'm still ready to compete. And I can see myself competing for the next handful of years in a kayak.
Mike, what year did you start with Hobie? I feel like Hobie's been with you for quite a while.
A long time. Yeah, it was eight years ago I began my relationship with Hobie, and it was it coincided with me seeing fishing kayaks for the first time at ICAST, you know? And I want to say about 12 years ago, I got my first kayak. And I'll be honest, it was a Dick's Sporting Goods special. It was a $500, $499 Pelican kayak, and I loved it. I loved being at the ground level with the fish, right? I love being in their world, sort of, right? Their environment. Being towed around by a fish, having a bass jump, and he jumps at eye level. I mean, that stuff made me, I was ate up with it. So when I went to ICAST, maybe like 10 years ago, and I saw Hobie and all these companies with fishing kayaks, with these pedal drives and all these systems, I was blown away. And I immediately knew it was something that I wanted to be a part of. So my relationship with Hobie was very natural. It wasn't a stretch. You know, it wasn't me trying to represent some product that I didn't believe in. It was something that I was passionate about already and wanted to do more, right? So it was a real easy fit. So it's been great. It's really been a build-up to this year when we got to launch an Ike-approved Hobie at ICAST this year. So, you know, you talk about things going full circle. We talked about it earlier with my uncle and AOY, but with Hobie, it's happened just the same. This year we launched Ike-approved PA 14 360, and it's doing tremendous. People love it. I got to win my first event out of it. It's really come full circle for me.
Well, as you said, I think that the kayak fishing, it is probably going to save, it's probably going to save the sport from the standpoint that it is going to, I would guess, increase tackle sales at least a third because so many people have access to this kind of thing. I mean, I've had kayakers on my podcast. These are ravenous anglers that just cannot get enough of it.
Yeah.
They tend to be higher consumers of online content than boat people do, and
Yeah.
it's where the sport's going, I think.
It is. And again, the accessibility of it, geographically, regionally, gender wise, male, female, age wise, it breaks so many barriers, economics, it's just such a easy system to get into. And again, whether you're in, a very basic kayak or the most expensive kayak in the world, I think that feeling of being at the fish's level, that feeling of accessibility, right? The ease of going and putting that kayak in and fishing. You can't get that with a lot of other forms of fishing. And that's why it's going to stay around,
Mike, thank you for everything today. You've answered all the questions and more. I think we understand where your future is, about as good as you can understand at this point. But I appreciate you coming on and being so straightforward with us.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. I love coming on podcasts like this. I love these style interviews. I've had a long career. I don't know where it's going. But I want everyone to know this. I know that not everyone is going to love my personality and my brand, but I've been in it from day one because I'm passionate about fishing. I love the sport, and I've only always wanted to help grow the sport. So if everyone knows that, I hope they've enjoyed the podcast, and I had a great time talking with you today. I can't thank you enough for having me on. It's been fun.
Okay, Mike, thanks a lot. We'll stay in touch. Appreciate it.